I'm Chief Cheryl Victorian. This is Waco PD on the beat. Whether it's crime or just getting to know the Waco Police Department, we're here to talk about things that matter most to you.
Hello, Waco, and welcome to On the Beat. I'm Officer AJ Smith, the Crime Stoppers Coordinator for McLennan County.
And I'm Sierra Shipley, the Public Information Officer for the Waco Police Department. We've got a pretty important episode. Any of you guys who maybe have been thinking about becoming a police officer, you might want to listen up for the next few minutes. We've got Sergeant Chris Nall here, who is in charge of recruitment.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
Appreciate it. So, recruitment, it's about to begin.
Yes, ma'am. We just got approved for 12 positions through a federal grant, so we do increase our total staffing numbers by 12 officers. It is going to take a considerable amount of time to staff those positions. We can't just go out and hire 12 folks and put them to work.
Right. Wouldn't that be great to just say, you want to be a police officer? Great, you work tomorrow.
It would be a much less of a challenge that way.
I would probably love that.
Right. Well, before we get before we get into all the recruitment and the process of all that, talk a little bit about your career here at Waco PD.
So I've been with the Waco Police Department just at 10 years. Prior to working here, I have worked for 2 other agencies. I've got a total of 16 years of law enforcement experience. 16 years on the dot. Coming up tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.
My career has primarily been based in patrol. I spent the vast majority of my time as a police officer, as a patrol officer, as a patrol sergeant. I've been involved with field training my entire career, and I recently transitioned over to this position about 8 months ago.
Okay. And so why did you want to transition into recruitment?
So the transfer and promotion process at the police department is pretty competitive. And so anytime a position does come available, there's always going to be a handful of people who are all putting in and fighting for the same stuff. So most officers will have kind of an area of focus. One of my areas of focus, quite honestly, had never been recruiting until that position came available. Whenever that position came up, I looked into it, spoke with the outgoing sergeant who had promoted to commander at that time, which is why the position was being vacated. Spoke with the recruiter and background investigator who actually recruited me about 10 years earlier and did my background investigation and visited with everybody over in that unit, and it seemed like a vitally important place to be the gatekeeper of our staffing of law enforcement. But it also seemed like a significant amount of fun, and it has been up to this point. I've really enjoyed this aspect of my career.
Well, that's awesome. That always makes work a lot easier and better to show up every day if you're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you enjoy it. So explain the process for recruitment. I'm sure not a lot of people realize that it takes about a year before that officer's by themselves.
Yeah, it's a very long process. From time of application to the time you're actually on the street as a standalone officer is anywhere from a year to a year and a half. The recruitment process begins whenever we accept applications. Being a civil service agency, we don't accept applications year-round. We have very specific windows, and those windows are for the timing of the background investigation. The information packet that you will turn in as a recruit or as an applicant, will be a full personal history statement, psychological report, polygraph questionnaire, and half a dozen references everywhere you've ever worked, your driving history, your blood type, everything. It's a very extensive background investigation process. Once that background investigation is completed and you transition to the academy, if you're a certified peace officer, you'll just go into field training as a fast-track officer. If you're not certified, we will hire you as a recruit. We'll pay for you to go to the academy. We'll pay for the academy. We'll pay for all your equipment while you're there. It takes about 4.5 months to get through the academy, and then you'll transition over to field training. Field training will be doubled up with a patrol officer, a seasoned veteran officer, and you'll have the opportunity to have on-the-job training for, again, between 4 to 5 months. And then at that point, once you've graduated the academy, graduated through the field training program, then you'll be assigned to your duty station as a standalone officer.
Dang, that's a lot of work.
Extensive.
That is a lot of work, and I thought my process was extensive. I'm only a civilian, and my application process was took a little longer.
So I was just thinking some of the background stuff that you talked about. I know, having talked to you guys and talked to some people that have gone through the process recently, that can be a scary process. So maybe let's talk about that and make it a little less frightening, because it's not that bad. I mean,
No, it's really not.
it sounds worse than it is.
It really does. And so the background process, it is intense, but you know, if you think of it as a test, it's the easiest test you're ever going to take, because you are the answers. You know, you know exactly everything that's been involved in your past, but there's such a significant level of responsibility that is incumbent to all police officers that background process really has to validate and verify all of the information that you are providing. The Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, who oversees peace officer licenses in the state of Texas, they've got a very strict set of parameters. They set the age, they set prior criminal history requirements. If you've been convicted of a felony offense or a family violence offense, you cannot hold a peace officer license in the state of Texas. So while I trust all of the incoming candidates to provide accurate and detailed information, I do verify all of that information down to the letter.
And we'll find it.
So,
That's for sure.
and to me, the big takeaway or the important part was just be truthful. Like, if you've done something, put it in the packet, because they're going to ask you questions about it. And if your heart rate starts going up, or however the polygraph works,
Right.
it's going to look like you're lying, even if it's just something small.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I think that's the big thing that deters a lot of people is, I have to take a polygraph? Oh, that's going to get me. And even I had to take a polygraph as a civilian. I thought I knew what a polygraph was, but then after doing it, I said, this is nothing like what they
No.
show on TV.
Everybody thinks they know what a polygraph is, and quite honestly, before I got into this position, I've taken a polygraph at every police career or every police job I've ever had. I don't like them. Nobody really likes
Right, they're
to
not
sit
fun.
there.
You have to sit there and
Absolutely.
barely not move.
But the polygraph itself is a phenomenal tool whenever it's used appropriately, and there's such a significant amount of misinformation and misunderstanding about it. Excuse me. We outsource our polygraph operators to a private entity. The two polygraph operators that we use are both have 30, 40 years worth of experience. They're extremely qualified, and they're very good at that job. Whenever they explain all of this to you, they'll use a whole lot of sciencey words, but I'm not that guy. What I will tell you is that with regards to that polygraph, whenever somebody is being intentionally deceptive, there are certain physiological responses that cannot be avoided. If you are actively and intentionally trying to obscure some bit of information, something, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your medulla oblongata, I don't know, something twitches,
Right.
and that twitch is what is observed and addressed
Yeah.
by the polygraph operator.
Right.
It's not trick questions. There's not anything that we're going to throw out of left field at you. Whenever you apply for the police department, we give you this questionnaire. We tell you the importance of honesty. We ask you a set of questions, and you answer those questions. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Now, we're not out to trick you. There's no trick questions. There's no double negatives in there. It's just you provide the information, and we're asking how accurate it is.
And it's all about that integrity and honesty too. Because
Absolutely.
let's smoked weed before in the past. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't be a cop today.
That is correct.
So I think it's all about just being honest and upfront. And I don't think that's what people realize.
Yeah.
that was the hardest part of the polygraph for me. Was I'm going in there, I'm thinking, okay, this position requires nothing but integrity from me and honesty from me, and I'm going to be truthful with everything I tell this polygraph operator. Well, I assume you had the same one and you had the same one. There are those baseline questions where the operator tells you, okay, on these questions that are snowball questions about this is a
Right.
blue screen behind us, you're supposed to say no. I almost failed the polygraph because I'm like, okay, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to tell him the truth. And he's like, this pen is yellow, and it was a blue pen. I'm like, no. Mr. Smith, I need you to tell me the correct answer that I'm looking for so I can establish a baseline of when you're lying. Okay, this is a black pen, and it was a blue pen still. Yes. Like, it was so difficult. But that was the hardest part, because the rest of it, like you said, is just, this is your background packet, and these are things I'm asking you about the background packet.
Yeah. And you can over focus on things, and you can hurt yourself in your confusion, if you will.
Yep.
And the thing is, you've provided that information.
Yeah.
It is imperative that is accurate, and if you expect to be a Waco police officer, then understand that we're going to hold you to a very high level of integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness.
Yeah.
The Waco Police Department is currently looking for those to join our dispatch team as 911 call takers. Being a dispatch operator means being the first to answer the call for help.
As a dispatcher, your job is to answer emergency and non-emergency calls for police, fire, and emergency medical assistance. When you work as a dispatcher for Waco PD, you're helping not only your Waco community, but the entire county.
To apply, you can visit the City of Waco website. We can't wait for you to be a part of the Waco PD team.
And so why is it seems like a silly question, but why is the process so extensive? Why is it so long?
Just because of the amount of responsibility that police officers have. If we want to look at it from a fiscal route, those 12 officers that we are actively bringing on board right now, every single one of those officers is going to cost our department approximately $120,000 from the time we receive their application to the time they're on the street out on their own. And we have to make sure that that investment is sound. And not only from a fiscal responsibility, this is my police department. The city of Waco is my town. I have an obligation to myself, as well as the citizens and the department itself, to make sure the quality of police officer that serves these citizens is the quality that those citizens deserve. It's kind of the reality that not every single person who wants to be a police officer has the capability of becoming a police officer. And again, while I would love to offer employment to each and every person who walks through that door, I have to hold them to a very, very high standard, and that standard takes time.
Yeah, and something that started well before my time at this department. I mean, our community loves and supports us, and that support is just incredible to have. If your process starts cutting corners, then we're going to have someone that could potentially just ruin that trust in an instant.
That is correct. And I'm not from Waco. I wasn't born in this area, and so I'm a transplant as well. And what you say about the citizens of Waco and the police department and really the infrastructure of the city itself, there's a very healthy working relationship. And that working relationship was not an accident. A lot of people have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making this entity what it is, and I'm certainly not going to be the one who lets it fall apart on my watch.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about how people can apply. If they want to apply, where should they go? What should they do?
First thing, if you are thinking about a career in law enforcement, the one thing I would suggest you do is talk to somebody personally about it. Find somebody who is involved with that agency, who's familiar with that agency and that demographic with the city and everything. Any other officer, any recruiter, anybody is going to be able to provide a lot of intrinsic information that you just can't find on a website. That being said, online research is absolutely vital. You'll find the base pay, you'll find the benefits pages, you'll find all of the retirement, because again, I love this job. I wouldn't do it if they didn't send me a paycheck every couple of weeks. Look into all of those things in totality. Whenever you are looking at the city website, the police department website, ours specifically, it'll show those times of application. We most recently had an application event that ran from June 1st all the way till August 31st. So there's a wide time frame of whenever we are receiving those applications. Our particular department, we do offer orientation courses that you can find on our website and the city's website linked together. We've got agility course orientations. We've got a tremendous amount of information out there so that if you are thinking about a career, make sure you know exactly what you're getting into before you drop all of that paper.
Yeah. That is very true. What would you say, now we've talked about the polygraph and it kind of deters people. Besides the polygraph, what would you say is maybe the hardest part about the test?
The biggest hurdle as far as the written test is concerned, the application process in and of itself, the biggest factor is timing. As we've mentioned earlier, we all lived lives before we were the police. We understand that not every decision everybody has ever made has been a good one. The fact or the main contributing factor to that is when did that occur? If we have somebody who has consumed marijuana at some point in their life, I'm fine with that. If they consumed marijuana within the last week or on their drive up to drop off the paperwork, that is the issue.
That is a little different,
So
yes.
Things.
the timing of it, because again, TCOL tells us who we can hire, all of the fundamental stuff, criminal records, basic qualifications, those are fine. There are certain temporary or permanent disqualifiers that they just exist. Now, I'll use myself as an example. Whenever I first applied for a police job in my hometown, I was right out of high school, and my driving record was bad, just simply put. And so I was rejected the first time I applied because of my hazardous driving history. From the time that I applied, that time I gave it a year, and of course a year through appropriate driving. The earlier phases of my driving career had extended out a little bit, so I was eligible for employment the next go round. One thing I'll tell people is that time and distance from the disqualifying event is what is going to be your best bet. So if you made some mistakes at one point in your life, show that you have transitioned into better judgment and better decision making, and that you've grown as a person. If you've made some mistakes within the last year or so, give it another year of appropriate decision making before you'll be eligible.
Absolutely.
Those recruiting preparation events, you kind of hinted at the agility preparation. I know that's something you guys just started, and it seemed like was very successful for
It was a
the
very
applicants.
successful program, and we do have fitness standards. Being a police officer is a physically demanding job, and so we do have those fitness standards as a part of it. However, one of the tasks that we have, we use an agility course that is mapped out and similar to the daily tasks of a police officer. But when's the last time you hopped a 6-foot fence in duress?
Well, like I could tell you when I did it last.
Yeah.
It
And
was
that
just-
was
yeah.
the orientation
Yes, the
event.
orientation.
Yeah, she
Prior to
passed the
that-
agility part. She was trying to be a police officer.
Prior to that, there's not a lot of people who will hop over a fence under duress. There's not a whole lot of people who really have that. We've all got the mechanical understanding of how to do it, but when you factor in the time frame and everything else that goes into it, it's always better to be prepared. So at those orientation events, we do schedule 2 of them. One of them is internal, and we'll tell you what we're actually looking for on that application, how to physically fill it out, because it is kind of a daunting task. Whenever I hand you 250 pages and say, fill this out by tomorrow, it's tough. The agility course itself will go out and show you the actual mechanics of how to do it. We'll give you an opportunity to run through that course in the allotted time frame, and we generally set those within 6 to 8 weeks of when the actual civil service test is, so that if you go out and you identify a particular deficiency, then you've got some time to work on that. The main key factor is I will give you every opportunity for success that exists. The only thing I ask is that you actually reach out and take that opportunity.
Crime Stoppers is an organization which bridges the gap between law enforcement and the community, so together we can solve crimes in our neighborhoods.
Crime Stoppers encourages the community to assist in the fight against crime by overcoming the 2 key elements which inhibit community involvement: fear and apathy.
Crime Stoppers allow citizens to anonymously submit tips. Tips can get you up to a $2,000 reward if it leads to an arrest or solves a crime. Tips can be submitted by calling 254-753-HELP, which is 4357, visiting wacocrimestoppers.org, or downloading the P3 app. Remember, tip submission is always anonymous and can lead to a reward of up to $2,000.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know unless you try, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. And then if you maybe don't make it through all the way, you can reevaluate and come back when we have that open again.
And do you guys require ride-alongs? I know that when I was going through, they asked why I hadn't been on more.
We
of
don't
them.
require them, but we do suggest them heavily. Now, granted, the last couple of years have been difficult for ride-alongs. It has not been available pretty much anywhere to do an actual physical ride-along, but we have opened up our ride-along program last month, and so we're beginning to schedule more and more ride-alongs.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, that's firsthand experience right there, to be in the car with the
And
officer.
it really is a good baseline of what you're going to be doing every day. And we do have people who come in and tell us all of the time, I want to be a police officer because I really think the neighborhood engagement team and the community-oriented policing and the relational policing, that all sounds like a lot of fun, and I want to do all the fun stuff. I don't necessarily want to take all the calls for service and do, I don't want to work traffic crashes and that kind of stuff. I want to do this. Well, the reality is law enforcement is not for you in that case. I am going to require that you be competent and capable of performing every task regarding that oath I'm going to make you swear by the end of the day. And if you can't commit to every single one of those tasks, then there's probably career fields that are more suited to those needs or your needs, and that career field is probably not being a patrol cop.
Right.
And I mean, I would probably say ride with at least the evening and the midnight shift, because you're for sure going to get one of those.
Well, they're flat
two.
out more fun.
You'll see more.
Sorry, day shift.
Yeah, exactly. Day shift is cool. Everybody aspires to make it to day shift with seniority at some point, but
Because that's that is the shift with the easiest hours. I guess you could say.
and most convenient for family life. But man, working an evening shift and midnight shift is just fun. That is where all the action occurs. And I know I'm a little bit biased on this because I spent so much time on patrol, but patrol is the backbone of an efficient and effective police agency. Patrol is where everything starts and everything comes from. And again, I can't stress this enough, it's the most fun that you're going to have. So I definitely would suggest a ride along with a 3-to-1 or midnight shift officer.
Yeah, definitely. Get that experience. See, like you're saying a minute ago, like get the feel for what you're going to be doing. See if that's truly for you.
Yeah.
Is there something that you want to tell people maybe looking to become an officer? Maybe something, I can't think of the word for it, not a stigma or a misinterpretation of what they might think policing or a patrol cop is, and what's something you might want to clear up that it's not usually how it goes?
Well, there's so many of those misinterpretations. What I'll tell you is it's not what you see on TV. It's not always that bad. It's not real life. Is not an episode of one of those Cops or Life PD. That's not how it actually works. It's not all glamorous and glorious every minute of every day, though. There is a happy medium. There's a balance. I think what we lose scope of many times is every single officer you encounter is a human being. We all have lives to live outside of this, and we all have lives to live while we are in the midst of it. So whenever you don't see past the uniform or don't see past the badge, you're selling yourself short on that. We have good days, we have bad days. There's parts of law enforcement that are pretty tragic. There's parts of law enforcement that are so personally fulfilling that it more than outweighs all of the tragedy. Yes. And so it's just a very, very dynamic career, and it really is what you make out of it.
Absolutely. How would you convince someone? Maybe they're on the fence. I don't know if I should do it. I don't know. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. What would you tell them? We're at a job fair.
We're at a job fair. First thing I will say is, come down to the personnel unit, come down to the office, chat with me about it. I'll show you the facility, I'll show you everything that we've got, and then do a ride along. And once you kind of have that, talk to somebody completely outside of that, because I do have an objective. My objective is to get applicants through that door, get quality and qualified applicants through that door. So I do have a bias on it. I'll tell you the good stuff.
Right.
Go find somebody just on a personal level. Go find a patrol officer who's been there about 3 to 5 years. Go find somebody who's a detective and been a detective for 15 or 25 years. Ask both of those people all of the questions that you asked me, and then make your decision based on an amalgamation of all of the answers.
Do you want to help solve crime in your neighborhood? Well, the Neighborhood Camera Initiative is something you might want to sign up for.
Ring doorbells, Nest cameras, and all the other camera security systems installed on homes and businesses that are facing public areas are tools that could help our officers solve very important crimes.
By signing up your camera or cameras in the Neighborhood Camera Initiative, it allows our officers knowledge to where these cameras are, and if a crime had happened, it could have possibly saw the incident in question.
You can sign up your camera on the City of Waco website at wacopolice.com.
Pretty good response.
That is. They got to do a lot of homework then.
A lot of homework.
Not just something that you'd wake up and decide, right?
Exactly. And one thing that I've stressed quite a bit is I do a tremendous amount of research into your background whenever I'm bringing you into this department. I fully expect and respect you doing that same amount of investigation into this career. Whenever you come in here, you're going to spend 20 years of your life at a minimum if you want to get that state TMRS retirement. Now, you're going to spend a lot of time over here, so you can't love one aspect of it and hate another aspect. It's a totality of the circumstances. You've got to fit in with the culture of the department. You've got to fit in with the city itself. If you are only partially vested in it and only partially satisfied by it, then it's going to make it very, very tough whenever those difficult days come up. But if you're all in, if you're full send, if you will, then it makes that time go by a lot faster.
Yeah. So let's round out the episode here. When does our application process start? When can people start applying?
Between January 1st and March 1st.
Okay.
We're going to have a civil service test in the middle of March. Those dates have not been specifically assigned yet, so I'll hold off on giving any particular days for the testing phase. But we will be accepting applications from the beginning of the year in the first quarter. After that period, there will be another civil service test about 6 months later, sometime around September, and we'll be accepting applications corresponding 2 or 3 months prior to that.
All right.
So at any given moment, just pop on the website, take a look at it, and we'll put links on Facebook, social media, everywhere we can, just to kind of get the word out.
Yeah. And you can also follow the social media accounts. Well, of course, we'll be posting, letting people know when those applications open, January 1, when that civil service test is actually scheduled in March. And, we hope to see you guys out there because this really is a big family. I mean, this is a real great team.
Yeah. I really enjoy it over here, and I don't say that lightly. One thing I mentioned is, I'm not really geared to be a recruiter up until the opportunity arose, and now I do feel like this is just a fun gig all around.
Absolutely. Well, Sergeant Null, thank you so much for joining us on Waco PD on the Beat. I'm Sierra Shipley, the Public Information Officer.
And I'm Officer AJ Smith, the Crime Stoppers Coordinator for McLennan County.
Have a good one, Waco.
Till next time.
Waco PD on the Beat, the heartbeat serving